So we've established the following effect so far. The problem is that if you have insufficient tension at the finish where it's easy to attain and your knees don't hold long enough, because maybe you're not patient enough, because maybe you are simply not strong or mobile enough in terms of full range of motion strength, then it's very likely you will have a round back on a recovery, which is almost impossible to correct later on. And this will be your issue for the most part of the drive. And then you will have a bent back, and this will lead to injuries in the long run. And the second problem with this is you cannot transfer force as well. Hello and a very warm welcome to the Arm Training channel. As you know, this is all about competitive rowing technique, and today I help a young junior pair from Denmark to become the slight bit faster they need just before the World Championships. It's May 2023 and their footage reached me just in time to help them between the European Champs and the Junior Worlds where they're going to compete. Now this is Hjalte, he's in stroke, and Simon, he's in bow. And the two do very well. Let me show you the raw footage, what it looks like. So this is what they sent me. Keep in mind, these are juniors, young boys. They haven't rowed too long. And overall, their idea of how to move the boat, how to send the boat, and how to move the body, and how to keep tension is pretty good. Let me stress the positives before I talk about the things that need to be improved. So first of all, if we look at Hjalte in stroke, something you can see is every stroke for me starts at the finish. So the finish is the position right after the blades clear the water. So this is right after feathering, when you go from square blades to feather blades, or this square to feather. And the most important thing at that phase is body tension. The finish is it's a very delicate phase of the entire rowing stroke. Especially in the pair, you feel immediately if you mess something up. You've got exactly one oar. That oar is very long. 370, 380, 390, really depends on how you set it up. And whatever you do on that small inboard, the intersection of the oar, versus that long outboard, the outer section of the oar, that's a long lever to move around. So the blade is pretty heavy, the outboard is pretty heavy, and whatever you do, not even talking about your own body stability, but whatever you do with that oar is going to have pretty much direct effect on the boat's stability. And there's not much space between the blade and the water. So this is a very difficult boat class to row, but a very rewarding one. If you can row the pair, you know a good deal about sweep rowing. Personally, I'm a big fan of becoming a master in small boats before you go into big boats. I know this contradicts the programs many big universities and schools run, simply because you don't have 55 singles, you don't have 120 singles. I understand that. But nevertheless, rotating and having young girls and guys in the boat on a very frequent basis, in a very small boat, single or pair, teaches you things about rowing big boats can't teach you. It's just a fact. All right, so these two boys are set out to have a very good rowing career ahead of them. One thing I absolutely like is the position at the finish. What I look for as a coach is a base tension in the ventral chain. So the ventral chain is here in the front, the abs. But most people confuse tension with tightening things up. Now there's a difference. I don't know if you're sitting right now, or you're driving, or you're doing nothing, just watching the video. If you are in a position where you can try something out, please follow me. If you're driving, don't do that. Try to tense up your muscles as if you wanted to show your six-pack. No matter how much fat there is between your six-pack and the mirror, just try to make it visible. That's too tight, okay? Now, try something else. Imagine somebody wants to punch you in the stomach. How would you tighten up? How would you tense up? Too hard. See, that's not what we want. But now, try to do the following thing. Try to make yourself tall, but not chest out. So chest out would be this. This is not what we need. Try to stand tall by doing this, you know? Chest out would be that. Low trunk tension would be that. So there are two metaphors you can use and elaborated on that. One of the last videos I did with Charlie. Essentially, we want to engage the deep layers of your core. And they were quite difficult to trigger intentionally. So metaphor one you can use is trying to bring your belly button closer to your spine. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, imagine, if you're the kind of person who can do that, you were tiptoeing in the ice cold water, cold. It's not the same kind of tension when I say, oh, show your six pack, somebody wants to punch you. No, no, no. It's a certain base stability. And if you look at these two lads here, they do have that kind of base stability. This is important because the low trunk is connected to the pelvis, and the pelvis is connected to your glutes. So I would say everything between your sit bone and where your heart rate belt will naturally be, this is probably the most overlooked and underrated section of your entire body when it comes to rowing. Most people just try to have their back straight, but that's not the goal. The goal is to have stability. Why? Because this is how we position the body. Let me show you what I mean. If we just move forward, and now, let's take another stroke where we have a better picture. Now on the way forward, what is important now is how you rock over. Rocking over means coming from the lean back position into the lean forward position. Now, how should this be done? So I'm trying to be very basic here so that even newbies can understand. The lean back position is where you use body weight into the finish. So this would be, let's go back, that position, okay? You see there's a slight lean back. This is about as much as you need, no more than that. Now, the initial rock over comes when your arms disconnect from the body. By this I mean your blade have come out of the water, you tap down, you feather, which means you rotate the blade flat, and then you bring your arms away. The point is not to bring your arms away to the point where they're fully extended. You can try this out. I demonstrated this in a couple other videos. If you extend your arms completely, try this out if you can. You will feel your deltoids, so the muscles on top of the shoulder, are going to engage too much. And in a boat, it's important to keep the center of gravity, which follows the center of body tension, muscle tension, as low as possible. So we want to keep it about here. The goal is to be as loose as you can in your shoulders. The muscles we want to engage is everything below the shoulders. You've got a small muscle, it's called teres major. That's the one responsible for horizontal stability. So everything we want to use at the catch, we have to prepare now. So we slightly tap down, feather, move away. You get slight tension here. Slight tension in the latissimus dorsi. That's the one you can, I think you can even see it now. Mine is pretty big. And on the way forward, once you feel a slight bit of tension also in the shoulder blades, don't extend, just a slight bit loose. Keep your elbow loose and low. I also try to keep my wrist as loose as I can. Then you actively need to roll over the pelvis. So you sit, you go forward. And this is what you need the explained tension for in the low trunk. You can't rock over if you don't have sufficient tension. Let's compare this one factor with the two. So stroke has got exactly the kind of tension I'm looking for. The shoulders are nice and low, same with bow. Now when we rock over, compare tension here, tension there. This here appears to be a bit on the looser side. Both are very good, but if we have to compare, there's a difference. And we'll see the effect of that tiny bit of difference just in a moment. When we rock over, you see, aha, this trunk seems to be more round than this one. Why? And what's the problem with this? Well, the following thing happens now. There are two parts that I always monitor as a coach. The first body parts are the knees. The knees, if you extend your knees too early, if you bend your knees too early, your hip joints here are not fixed in space, which means your seat goes back and forth because the knees are too loose. The problem with this is a simple one. Try, if you're on an erg, on a bi rower in the boat, you can try this out. Have your knees as loose as possible and try to rock over in the sense where you actually have, you almost aim for a hollow back, but realistically it's never going to be one. And then you rotate forward. So you want to have a stable back and you just change the way you sit on the seat. So here at the finish, you sit where you load the seat from the bow. And then you rock over and then you load the seat from the front. You still sit on the same seat, on the same spot on the seat, but when you rock over, you load your body weight in a different angle on the seat. But that requires you first to rock over nicely, which is exactly the pelvic tilt I just referred to, is this one here. So if you know somebody who can do belly dancing, they will probably be able to do this one movement quite well. The reason why the preparation is so important, that there is a direct correlation between how you prepare and how well you'll be able to take advantage of your body and the body levers throughout the drive. I've seen very small people having huge advantage over very tall people in rowing because they have a stronger back and a more mobile back. That's one of the most underrated factors in rowing. I think I will do a video about this in the future. If you're interested, please put it in the comments below. Now, the knees of both of you weight nicely. However, you should have a stable trunk, and the trunk is too soft. Therefore, you can't rock over as much as you should. And when I say rock over, most people confuse this. They think, okay, rock over is bringing the shoulders forward. The shoulders are actually secondary. What is primary is, where's the low trunk? Everything from hip bone up, say to, this is where the heart rate strap would be. This needs to move forward. And the shoulders will move along, so will move along, that's okay. But if this stays around, you just bring that forward, what happens is that you weaken your trunk. And you're going to weaken it for, let me fast forward, this phase. See that bend here in the back? This is not a natural bend. This is not like this, the hip joint, or it's the knee. It's not a joint that is designed to transfer force around the bend. This is the spine that is designed to absorb loads from the top. It's not designed to be bent, because this is how your discs are being pushed. Now imagine you're doing this on a linear erg. And I'm pretty sure, Simon, you may be doing this on linear ergs quite frequently. It doesn't matter how dynamic or whatever they're called should be. As long as it's not even the original rowing motion, you've got a problem. Maybe now you don't feel it. I started to feel it when I was 19 and 20, 21. This is when I had serious issues with my back. So that's something you need to get under control. I will post 1 or 2 links to videos in the description of this video. Did a couple of things with Dr. Charlie Tora, so Charlie from Munich, and where we focus mostly on the iliosacrum joint mobility, and the other factor is how to mobilize the pelvis and how to make your trunk, the low trunk, stronger. Okay, so we have established problem number 1. It looks like there is sufficient tension in the low trunk, but as a matter of fact, it is not. There is a difference in quality. I think stroke is doing a bit of a better job than bow, but it needs to be addressed. With juniors, girls and boys, you've got to keep something in mind. A lot of times, especially with boys, there are almost enormous pushes of growth. It's not in such a way where there's a continuous growth and all the body parts can adapt accordingly. Sometimes the body grows so quickly, other body parts just need time to catch up. Now, I learned this. I do have a young boy, and what I didn't know was that every once in a while, and if you're a parent, you probably can relate, he doesn't hear me. He's not deaf. His hearing is perfectly fine. But there are phases when things grow, the nerves just need time to catch up. Now, when I was a boy, my mother would sometimes yell at me in a not very mean, but she was annoyed way, say, "Hey, are you deaf? What's going on?" But I actually couldn't hear her. I mean, there were many times where I could hear her quite well and I didn't want to hear her. Probably I'm the only young boy who's ever done that. But in many cases, I simply wasn't able to hear. And it's the same with the young boys here as well. When things grow too quickly, especially when the legs become too long too quickly, your mobility suffers for a time. Now, what should you do? In my humble opinion, you should become a master at not just stretching. This is, for me, very important for overall health and body relaxation, but more importantly, full range of motion strength. So things like reverse extensions. This is where you would lay flat, for example, on a table or in bed. Your legs would be up in the air, and then I showed with one leg now, you hold on to something, your upper body's flat, and then you just lift up your leg. This will strengthen you and make you much stronger. Other exercises I truly like are good mornings, simply with a broomstick. You don't need much equipment for that. Or overhead deep squats with a broomstick. It's not about the weight, it's about the execution, how clean it is. Let's get back to the topic, a very interesting topic here in that pair. So, on a recovery, we see the back is prepared in such a way where it is too round, especially in bow. Stroke is doing a bit of a better job. What is good, however, is the looseness in the shoulder. It's very good in bow and very good in stroke. See, we can actually almost see the teres major and the lat. The lat is a long muscle that stretches down into the back. It's like designed for rowing. This is why many rowers don't fit into regular shirts, because this muscle here becomes too wide. So you look like, I don't know if you can see this, but here with me, I'm having difficulties to fit into regular shirts. That is because this muscle is used a lot in rowing, and it's one of the prime drivers to transfer force from hands through the trunk into the feet. Does it make sense? Okay. So we've established the following effect so far. The problem is that if you have insufficient tension at the finish where it's easy to attain and your knees don't hold long enough, because maybe you're not patient enough, because maybe you are simply not strong or mobile enough in terms of full range of motion strength, then it's very likely you will have round back on a recovery, which is almost impossible to correct later on. And this will be your issue for the most part of the drive. And then you will have a bent back, and this will lead to injuries in the long run. And the second problem with this is you cannot transfer force as well. Now imagine you were due on these fitness stations, you would do a cable row. Well, would you have a bent back? You're probably not, because you can't pull as much weight. So it's the same in rowing. In rowing, we just don't feel it because we usually only work with 40 to 60 kilos on our hands. But if you repeat this, let's say in a 40-minute session with a stroke weight of 20, then you repeat that in just one session 800 times. So of course, A, it's bad muscle memory, and B, it's prone to cause injuries. So it makes you slower than you could be. But as I said before, it may be just a matter of simply growing too quickly with these young lads. A second issue is the blade clearance. The blade clearance is what we refer to as the space between blade and water. Now this is actually okay, but now it is too close. And the reason why it's too close, I think, is that the back here is not stable enough. And in a pair, it affects both. Because you only have one oar on each side, you need to balance this out. So it's very difficult to have good balance if one keeps the blade too close to the water. It's not like in a double, where you have two oars. No, it's a pair is a pair. A pair is a very unique and very difficult boat class to row. So as we reach the catch, the problem shows. See, when you push down on something, you cannot pull it. You can push something and rest your body weight on it, but you cannot rest your body weight on the oar handle and try to prepare for a pull. Now, why would you need to rest your body weight here on the oar handle? Because the blade needs to square, which means it needs to be set upright again. And as the shaft is mounted on the top side of the blade, as you can see now here, the shaft is right there, it's not in the middle. The shaft needs to be off the water quite a bit, which means the oar handle needs to be pretty low in the boat. So you're pushing down, and also both of you with the intention of having more length, your outside shoulder tends to go too deep. So the idea is to have the shoulder girdle parallel, almost parallel to your inboard at almost any given point of time, or as much as it is possible. But at the catch, when my oar is pointing this way, it doesn't make sense to try to go that way just to have a bit more length. This works on the linear drive erg, but it doesn't work in the boat. On a linear drive erg, many things work that don't work in the boat. I would even go thus far to say, okay, in order to be fast on a linear drive erg, it's better to row ineffectively in terms of rowing boat-specific technique. It's almost more effective if you're ineffective as a boat rower in order to be fast on a stationary or even dynamic linear drive erg. It doesn't really matter. The problem is always that you pull on a chain and on a bar. The true rowing motion just looks different. And that is why every time in spring, a lot of rowers who have to row linear ergs in winter need to relearn. They need to relearn that there is an issue, that it's not intellectual, it's muscle memory. A 40-minute session, 20 strokes a minute, 800 strokes. Now let's say you don't have a 40-minute session, let's say you have an 80-minute session, it's 1,600 strokes or anything in between. So there's a lot of automation going on, and getting rid of muscle memory or changing muscle memory or altering it is difficult. So that's why I think this is a lot of automated memory. So how to get rid of this? Well, you could row the ever so famous square blade all the time, but if you do this, I recommend to do it more the 90s Italian style. So they used to row in a way, and I'm talking about it already, and now I probably will not be able to find footage of it. But I remember very vividly when I started in the 90s, very early 90s to row, the Italians would never fully feather the blade. They would keep it slightly squared, always with the ability to, I don't know why they did it. You could find reasons. It doesn't take you so long to square, or having the blades off the water all the time. I don't know. It was just their style of doing it, and they are not doing it now. But in any case, if you want to row square blades, start the old Italian way. So do it in a way where you're slightly square, and whenever a wave hits you, let it be flat. Try it again. Let it be flat. This way, you just sense where the water is, and you're forced to have a bit more space. For me, there's nothing worse than being too rigid with square blade rowing. So, no, that's not how it works. You should not be scared of it. You should embrace it in a sense where you feel where the water is. So that gives you much more feedback. So as you reach forward and down, the catch now takes you too long. So here at the catch, you have to switch from pushing something down with your body weight to pull. You can try this out. Try to rest parts of your body weight, which is something on an object that is in front of you. Try to reach as far as you can. Try to lean down on it, and now try to pull it. Yes, it works, but it takes time. And you have to be ready in your back. It's not like you pull. No, your entire body needs to transfer force from your feet onto the blade, with the idea of controlling the blade to the absolute maximum. Why do we need to do this? Well, here at the catch, what we actually want to do, we're changing the acceleration type. So in a rowing stroke, there are two types of acceleration. There's the recovery acceleration and the drive acceleration. The drive acceleration happens now. So we put the blade in the water, we try to have it just on the water surface, and when we start to push, the way the blade is shaped, it will suck itself a little bit under the water surface and stay there. We don't want to go too deep because it doesn't pay. The water is not much more dense if we go deeper. What we want is a blade that allows us to hold on to the water. And then we push the boat past the locked blade. But the moment we add more vertical force on the blade, because our hands go up, because our back is weak, it's not well positioned, this happens. Or maybe the low trunk is not stable enough and we rotate too early, which doesn't matter in a linear erg, but in the boat it matters ultimately. Then we create something which is called slip. So water slips either above or beneath the square blade. And then the blade starts to rip through the water. Now, some people actually embrace this and say we need quick oar handle speeds. Well, no, we need quick boat speeds. The oar handle itself, the speed of the oar handle can only be measured in relation to the boat. And what is relevant is not how quickly the oar handle moves in the boat. What is relevant is how quickly the boat moves past the fixed blade. So we're not measuring, so we're measuring the wrong thing. It's like measuring, hey, you just ran 800 meters, huh? How many times did you inhale and exhale? I hope it was enough. Nobody would do this. So you understand how ridiculous this is. And I'm being serious. I don't know how many people told me, yeah, oar handle speed is not right. Forget the oar handle speed. It doesn't matter. It is not relevant. What is relevant is a vertical oar handle speed, if you want to measure anything, because this should be close to 0. That is the interesting one. Okay, now the reason for your slow connection at the catch is that your hands are going up when they actually should be resting stable. You could compensate with the handle foils, where you have a little plastic strip on the top of the blade, and this would immediately prevent you from going too deep. Montgomery Bell Academy in Nashville, Tennessee, Rich Keyser is the coach. He equipped, I think, the entire school with this, and he's hugely successful with it. All right, now the rest of it actually looks really good. You guys told me that you had issues at the start, but I don't see any footage of your start so far. Other than that, it looks good. One little tip, because I got asked the question, hey, how do you row a pair effectively? The most important phase is really the finish. At the finish, you need tension. You need to tap down with the same intensity and speed, hold for the same amount of time, and then you loosely disconnect and go forward. That is how you stabilize a pair. And most people are so busy to just keep the pair stable, they don't focus on the drive. Yeah. Something else I realized when I watched this pair, I think you guys did reversed. So actually what you should be doing is, I don't recommend you change positions, but it appears to me that stroke has a more patient drive before the upper body engages, and bow engages the upper body much quicker. Now, if your blade here and bow has more load, despite all the slip you create with a blade that's going too deep, at an early stage, you will steer the boat because your blade is closer to the bow, which is here. So at the catch, you in bow have to be more docile, you have to be more patient, and you have to compensate and use your upper body decidedly later. You don't need the same force curves in a pair. In a pair, you need different and complementary force curves. Now, here in stroke, here at the catch, you see this? You would actually have to have a pretty quick connection. I don't say push hard or have an extremely hard catch, but you would have to have a very rapid connection on your blade because it will take time because your blade is so far away from the bow. Now at the finish, that blade is very close to the stern. So you need to watch out how much load you're applying towards the finish. While bow needs to do a bit more because you see, that is quite a distance between these two oar locks. So what I recommend you guys do is bow. You make sure you keep your low back more stable. Then when you start to drive, try to keep a bit of that upper body swing for later. It's a tiny shift, it's not a large one. And stroke, I would keep it the way it is right now, but maybe when you're at the catch, see this? There's a bit of empty seat motion before the upper body engages, so before there's resistance. So don't start to push too early. The catch is always going to be a wash in, it's not going to be a vertical placement. But try to have that wash in with lighter hands so that it takes less time to connect horizontally. All right, I could say much more, but this video is already pretty long. I hope it is helpful. I hope my community benefits from that as well. And I hope you guys, Hjalte and Simon, I hope you're doing well at the Worlds. If there's anything I can help you with, just let me know, please. Other than that, the rowing machine that you saw in the video is called Rower. That's actually my rowing machine company. I started this when I was under 23 athlete in the national team as well, because I had massive back pain from the linear erg, so there's a history to that. And I started this with no money, not much experience. My partner and I, my partner had just retired and I had 3 day jobs to pay for that. to set up a production company. My partner invested in his entire retirement into that. And over the course of now 21 years, we slowly built the Birower into what it is today. What I hope, and I'm doing my very best, is by far the best rowing machine money can buy. And one of our customers said it, hey, it's not a rowing machine, it's the world's first smart rowing simulator, and I think he's right. So Giancarlo, thank you for that. Yeah, so here's the link to the website, here's the link to the channel if you're interested. On the Birower channel, I'm trying to cover interesting topics on what we do at the workshop. You know, how is this thing actually built? How does it work? So if you want to follow us there, I would love to welcome you there as well. We'll probably do an expo at the Euromasters Munich in a couple of weeks. And I'm not sure, but I might be able to make it to Head of the Charles this year, 2023. Okay, and then I've just recently started a new channel. If you're interested in that, it's called To My Young Self, where I talk to my young self. And you have to know that I grew up without a father, and I considered this to be a loss for many years, but now I actually see, no, I had the chance to shape that role now that I'm a father myself. But there are certain things I would have loved to know. You know, somebody just pulled me aside and, hey, look son, this is how it works. And I'm trying to do this for everybody who just likes to have a different opinion. I don't claim that I'm right, and I might be wrong, and maybe down the line a couple of years I'll say, hey, today I see this different. But I'm trying to talk to my young self and to other young selves and to other people who are interested in that, say, how can we do this? And in very short clips, I'm trying to be down to earth, humble, yet straight to the point. If you're interested, here's the link to the channel. Now, thank you very much for watching the video until the end. And I'm very much looking forward to welcome you in the next one. All the best to you, and see you soon. Bye-bye.